Thanks, Dan. That's me. I'm a real human being. There's my picture to prove it. Not AI generated picture. If it was AI generated picture, I would have chosen someone probably younger and much more handsome. But without further ado, since we've got a short and compressed 15-minute time frame today, we're going to talk about AI and employment law, specifically the new-ish case. It's about a month old, where the EEOC went after a company for discrimination in using AI in hiring. And time permitting, we're going to talk about some other stuff too. But first, we're going to set the groundwork here. So when we talk about AI, there's lots of different examples of AI throughout history. I mean, if we go back to the Bible, we can talk about golems or golems, whatever you want to call them. I believe they're golems, which were servants imbued with some sort of intelligence to serve their masters. We can talk about Frankenstein's monster, which was an animated creature that was given intelligence. In the 60s, I believe it was 2001: A Space Odyssey with HAL 9000. In the 80s, we got Max Headroom and the Terminator. More recently, we have IBM's supercomputer Watson that plays chess. I think Amazon made one that plays the game Go. We also have in our hands now, practically every day, we have Alexa, Siri, Google Bard, ChatGPT, that have kind of brought us to where we are now in terms of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence generally is just the science of making machines that can think like humans. The benefit of AI is that it can process huge chunks of data in ways that you and I just can't do. We're limited to our senses and our finite brains, but you can link computers and computers and computers together in series and basically keep expanding the computing power of the brain, so it's able to do things such as recognize patterns and make decisions and judge like humans can, and it can learn quickly based upon the data that is input into it. The EEOC is aware of all this, is aware of AI, and is aware that companies use AI during the hiring process. And so what the EEOC did, I believe back in May, is came out with, I guess, an initiative or a directive called the AI and Algorithmic Fairness Initiative. And the EEOC, just to back up 2 steps, basically is in charge of enforcing the discrimination laws at a federal level. So they administer Title VII, which prohibits discrimination based upon race, sex, religion, national origin. They administer the Americans with Disabilities Act, which adds disability. They administer the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, which adds age, and case law has added other things like sexual orientation and gender identity. And so basically, the EEOC is trying to make sure that artificial intelligence isn't discriminating against employees and applicants based upon their being part of a protected class. And so they are they're studying it right now, and they're going to send out some guidance, theoretically, to help us understand what they're going to be looking for and what is a no-no and what is okay to do in terms of using AI, especially during the hiring process. And what they're really looking at is whether or not necessarily that an AI is intentionally discriminating against someone, but whether there's a disparate impact that is caused by using artificial intelligence. And so they said, we're not against the use of artificial intelligence, but we're looking for where one of these protected classes is disproportionately negatively affected by the use of artificial intelligence. And so the EEOC has outlined a couple areas for us in terms of what they would be looking for. The first is resume scanners that prioritize applications using certain keywords. The second is virtual assistants or chatbots that ask job candidates questions about their qualifications and reject those that don't meet predefined requirements. It's kind of like a phone screen online with an AI. The third is video interviewing software that evaluates candidates based upon facial expressions and speech patterns. The third is software where they provide job fit scores for applicants. And these are just things during the hiring process. They're also looking at some other things, determine whether there's any sort of discrimination involved and not based on the AI application of the rules. So these four things that I talked about is only a rule of thumb right now. There's not the end all be all of what they're looking for. There absolutely could be more things that they're going to look for, or they could look at some of this stuff and say this is not an issue and it's fine. We'll have to wait till their guidance comes out once they've completed their studies to figure out which way is up on that. But they've given us a heads up what they are looking for. Coincidentally, or perhaps not, back in May also, the EEOC filed suit or filed a complaint against a company called iTutor Inc. Or the iTutor Group. And the iTutor Group is a group of related entities that offered tutoring services to China under that name of iTutor. And they were looking for employees to provide online English language tutoring to adults and children in China. Every year they hire thousands of tutors who submit their applications through the website, the company's hiring website. And on the website, the iTutor Group requests the date of birth for the applicants. And what happened is one person who thought she was immensely qualified filed an application with them and was immediately rejected. She thought this was weird, so she turned around and resubmitted the application, making herself younger. And lo and behold, she was immediately offered an interview. So she thought it was funny, talked to the EEOC about this, and the EEOC said this is weird. What they found out is that the hiring website, when it requested the date of birth, it was programmed to automatically reject female applicants 55 and older and male applicants 60 and older. So EEOC filed suit. iTutor quickly settled. Turns out there were 200 or so job applicants that were summarily rejected based upon age, which obviously, I think in my case, obvious to me, violates the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, the ADEA. So the EEOC sought back pay and liquidated damages for those applicants, and they got $365,000 out of this company based upon that snafu. Now, we could debate whether or not this was artificial intelligence or if somebody accidentally or perhaps intentionally put the wrong date in there in terms of a screening qualification to reject applicants based upon age. I don't know all the facts of the case because it was a consent decree, and so the facts aren't all necessarily public except the press release. But I would say that this is probably an issue of human error, but the EEOC claims it is AI, and so we're going to go with what they say because I can't refute it. Coincidentally, there's a case I'm aware of probably about 10 years ago out of Illinois where a person sued because they were, I think, in their 90s, and they went to put in their birth year and it wasn't an option. It didn't go back far enough. And so they sued for discrimination as well and won. This is not the first instance of AI discrimination that I'm aware of. Amazon had a resume screening tool that downgraded resumes that included the word women and those attendees of women's colleges because they had not historically had many women engineers and computer scientists. So it wasn't deliberately programmed to reject women. This was an AI machine learning thing that learned, quote unquote, learned that based upon the resumes that it's looked at and candidates that have been successful, that the experience and college choices of women indicated that they were non-male and therefore dissimilar to previous employees, and it didn't have the data set to say that these were going to be successful employees, which is what it was focused on doing. Microsoft has also had issues. They used AI facial recognition to measure emotion, which they used to determine desirable employee traits. This software consistently assigned negative emotions to the faces of Black men far more often than those of their white counterparts. This is actually not too surprising because Black employees are more likely to be described as aggressive or threatening when their white counterparts are described as assertive or passionate. And I think you could even extrapolate that difference between men and women too in the workforce. I think women more frequently get a negative adjective assigned to them if they're assertive or aggressive than men. So the point is, even though that lawsuit was the first one that the EEOC took based upon AI discrimination, it's not the first time AI has discriminated, especially in the employment law context. So basically, how can an AI be racist? They can be racist based upon the garbage in, garbage out theory. So if you have a bunch of white male programmers in their early 20s sitting in an office in San Francisco coding this stuff, you know, they're going to use words when they're coding it to describe themselves or their peers, and they don't actually consider cultural differences that would make women, people of color, or people with disabilities as desirable as the words they use to describe themselves. So if this input is flawed, then the output is going to be flawed. So it's not that the computer is intentionally being racist and saying that they have a preference for one particular class or race or another. It's that they didn't have good rules with which to guide themselves. So lastly, real quick, because we're running up on time, there's a bunch of new local and state laws coming out on this, as well as at the federal level. So New York City's got the most robust one, but Illinois, Maryland, and Massachusetts, Illinois and Maryland have laws already. Maryland and DC have legislation pending. New Jersey has legislation pending, and like even states such as North Dakota and Texas and some other red state, I think Oklahoma, have passed laws creating AI task forces within state government to look at the use of AI and the law. So I guess the short answer is keep an eye on this, especially if you're using AI or you have software that uses AI. Keep your head on a swivel, pay attention to the news in terms of what's happening with the EEOC, their guidance, as well as any new cases or laws that might come down from state legislatures. Thanks for joining us today.